all know is a Thabet, and the Thabets are connected to lots of people, yes. Rose, tell us how your family got here.
Well, my mother was born in Williamson, West Virginia. And how we got there and back here. Oh, okay. Anyway, she was born in Williamson, and she was, her dad, they had moved to Montgomery, West Virginia, and her dad had a kind of like a grocery, confectionery type store, and he was coming home to his family, and some man followed him that he knew, and the guy wanted money from him because he knew my grandfather had carried his money from the store, and he wanted him to give him some money to drink on, and he told the man to go away and go home with his family. And he turned around and went in the door, or going in the door, and the man shot him 3 times in the back. And my grandfather was murdered in Montgomery, West Virginia. And they made a, what do you call it? They made a memorial? No, they took the guy and put him in a wagon and hauled him all around town and made a spectacle of him. And they said at one time they had tarred and feathered him, but I'm not sure about that. But, yeah. But anyway, so my grandmother, some of the relatives got together and decided my grandmother would be better off back in the old country raising, because she had 4 or 5 kids then. And so my mother was around not quite 4 years old when she went back to Lebanon. Or she was never in Lebanon, but she went to Lebanon. And then she married at the age of 15 there to my dad, which they were first cousins. But back then they married over there. And so she had 5 of us kids there and brought them over to the United States. And I was one of the youngest when I was 9 months old when we came over. And then we did not have to go to Ellis Island because Mom was an American woman. And so we came on through. And my one youngest sister went to Ellis Island once and looked all over the place for our name and could not find it. And we told her, we said, that's because we never went through Ellis Island. So we settled in.
Who were your mother and father?
My mother was Rasmia Thabet, and my dad was Thabet Thabet.
From Charleston.
From Charleston. And we settled here because Mom's brothers, and some of them were already here in Charleston. And so that's how come West.
And who were your sisters and brother?
I had 4 sisters, Linda, Clemence, and Neoma, and I was, Carolyn is my baby sister, and Eddie Thabet, and Charles Thabet.
Charlie's still in Charleston.
Yes, there was 7 of us kids.
And how did they make a living?
Dad was a peddler to begin with. That's what they did.
They had a
when they
store?
came. No, later we got a market over on Patrick Street, and we worked from, he left of the morning and didn't come home till the midnight bus. And he worked all kinds of hours, and all of us kids worked in that market. I worked when I was 11 years old over there and helped him, and we all worked. So anyway, when Dad got his citizenship, it automatically made all of us kids citizens. And right after that, they changed the law and said every child had to apply for their own. So we were just under the wire.
So we know the Thabets broke the immigration law. And from that moment on, it's all been different. And if you are related by choice or by blood to the Thabet clan, would you rise, please?
Yeah!
Thank you. This is a very Thabet-rich event tonight. Well, let me stay real close to Rose. When I grew up in Williamson, I'm a Mickel. The name Cantees was all over town, and it was very important to me. My daddy was in business, as was the rest of our family, but you couldn't go very far without needing something from a Cantees or buying something from a Cantees, whether it was something to eat, something to wear, or something to do. Tell us a little about that Miss Cantees, who became a McCoy.
Okay. I know my father came here, gosh, I'm not certain, about close to 1900, and about a year or so later went back and got my mother. They had 8 children, 6 boys, 2 girls, and had a confectionery downtown Williamson. They started at Welch, West Virginia. I don't know why, but they came to Williamson from Welch because Welch had a big fire and they had to move. So my father went out peddling that the kids today would never do. He went up Pond Creek and through Mingo County and raised 8 children and had worked at the store for many, many years, and he did well with all those children, but I believe that's about it. Sam was the oldest. And then there was Tom, Camel, Harry, Johnny, and Cullen, and my sister Adiba and me. I'm the only living Cantees out of 3 families, 8 in each family, and I'm only living one.
So you see, despite the fact that many came before, one of the most important things about you, Jeanette Cantees McCoy, is that you've brought a small country with you every year for the last 30 years. You want to point them out to this group, and let's get them to stand. If you're connected to the Cantees clan, would you stand so we can thank you for being a part of this? And if you're from Williamson, West Virginia, you better stand up too, because you're the reason they made money. Michaels and Cantees go back a long, long, long way.
And she has a birthday tomorrow. She'll be 91.
Wait a minute, don't tell her. People don't, she doesn't want us to know she's going to be 91 tomorrow. Tomorrow. It'd be premature to sing tonight, right? So you know what that means. If you're with us tomorrow night, don't be surprised when this whole room starts screaming at you tomorrow. So let's see, who shall we go to next? I was picking on Mr. Hanna a little while ago, but Mr. Hanna came here as a 10-year-old, and most of the others so far have come here, are first generation, maybe some second. So, as a boy who came, can you speak a little bit about what it was like to have lived 10 years in Kfeir and then come here? Because 10 is pretty old. You think about the kids that are with us tonight. A few of them are 10. And I don't want to put any words in your mouth, George, but how'd you do it?
Thank you. Well, as Sherry said, I came here when I was 10 years old. However, when I was born at the age of 3 months old, my dad left Kfeir and came to the United States. His brother was here already, and I don't know exactly when he came at that particular time, but he came and worked with his brother with the intention of bringing us over shortly thereafter. So, Second World War started, and he joined the Army, and he served 5 years in the European theater and could not bring us over. Yeah, he won several bronze medals and ribbons, and he cleared out a minefield. He had the captain or the platoon, whoever, asked for volunteers to go out and clear out a minefield. Well, he volunteered. So he took some of the platoon with him, and they cleared the minefield out. And he's got, ribbons and citations for doing all that. But anyway, after the war was over, he sent for us, and me and my mother, and his mother, and she would not come with us. Three delays in our trip, and she says, "I don't want to go with you." Of course, this is all in Arabic, of course, She says, "I don't want to go on that ship and die on the ship, and you throw me overboard and feed me to the fish." So we came over here at 10 years old. I couldn't speak a word of English. They threw me in the first grade at 10 years old with these little kids. And my uncle took me to school, and he says, when he dropped me off, he says, I gave him a word about this long in Arabic, cuss word, and I took off. So he brought me back to school. Anyway, most kids, most guys, that is, they graduate at 18 years old. So they caught me up with my grades, and I was 19 years old when I graduated. So, and then I went into the Army after I got out of high school. Well, I went to Marshall for 2.5 years, and then I got drafted and went and I served in the U.S. Army in Okinawa. And how I made a living? Well, when I got out of the Army, I applied with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I was hired with them, and I stayed with them. This is in Huntington, West Virginia. I stayed with them for about 9 years, and then I got out. It was just kind of boring work, working with figures day in and out, and with all these dams that they have. We were responsible for like 26 dams in the district, and we had computations day in and day out, how much water runoff was coming in, how much was going out. So that got boring for me, and I went to work with a food brokerage for about 4 years. And after 4 years, General Foods Corporation, the manufacturers of Maxwell House coffee and Jell-O and Country Time lemonade, they were looking for a representative in the area, and I was hired with them. And I stayed with them for about 25, 27 years. And they gave us an early buyout, and I took the early buyout. I was 58 and a half, and heck, I've been enjoying life ever since.
Let's see, so far we have infrastructure, military service, confectioners, hardworking people from midnight, till midnight, up at dawn, raising 2 children, 10 children and generations. And as I remember, these households were the ones that the other kids came to. So your houses were not just filled up with your own kids, but with your friends. The nice thing about Kfeirians is they make friends with pretty girls from other villages. And one of those pretty girls from another village is from the village of Aika. Did I say that correctly? Close enough. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how a pretty little girl from Aika ends up married to one of our most precious men that we're going to honor, and a little bit about the life that you have had together. Can you do that?
Well, as she said, my people are from Aitha, Ilfahab, and they were clay makers and they made pottery. And when I saw this cute little guy from Kfeir, everybody loved him and I loved him. And so I decided that, okay, I'm going to go to Kfeir, go marry a Kfeirian, and then I'll be a Kfeirian. And we had 62 years of marriage, and as most of you know, Louis just passed in March, and he lived a good life. But talking about Kfeirians, my father-in-law came over on one of these ships, and when he got to Ellis Island, they said, we don't have room for you guys, you have to be turned back. So they turned the whole group of people from Kfeir back, and Dad he didn't know what to do. He was just a kid, a teenager. So they took him to St. Thomas, and they didn't have any money. They couldn't speak the language. And so what they did was they ate bananas. It's all they could afford. For months, days, weeks, they ate bananas. So when I married my father-in-law, I thought I was going to give him a treat. And I gave him some bananas. No, it wasn't very good. But if all Kfeirians on this earth, which you are, were as loving and kind as my in-laws and my husband, you've lived a good life.
Well, now I'm going to find my friend Larry Jamra. I love saying that name. I feel very Arabic when I say it. Thank you, thank you. With my hillbilly accent, yes, overcome. So I've been coming when I was much younger, and then I took a little break to, have a life, as many of us have. But every single reunion I've been to, Larry has been in, every single one. And so to me, he very much represents the steel rod that represents who we are. So Larry, I know you have lots of stories. Many of them we'll hear at bingo tomorrow, definitely. But could you share a little bit about what becoming an American Kfeirian has meant to you and your family?
Well, number one, I was born here. My father was born in Kfeir, and you've heard Toledo mentioned a little bit in the background, in case you didn't know it. I don't know why, but the Kfeirians' hub years ago was Toledo. Probably every member of one of your families was originally in Toledo. We probably had 100 families from Kfeir in Toledo. Everybody married everybody, and they all ended up Kfeirian couples. Now, my father came here because my Uncle Albert was here. My Uncle Albert married a Kerbaway, Elizabeth Kerbaway. My Aunt Edma was here, and she married a Joseph. My Aunt Lamaz was here. She married a Bassett. So we have a lot of the families mixed in with the Jamras, and as you know, the first meeting for a Kfeirian reunion was held in Toledo, Ohio. And all the people I mentioned were in that original picture of the first Kfeirian reunion. And I guess my mother and father met here. They were both born in the old country. They had 4 children, and Actually, Louis Rahall got me very interested in the reunion because I met my wife at a reunion here. She was a Ramey. And so I was one of those stories where we met at a reunion and got married and had children. And well, I'd like to say one thing before I give the mic back. George Hanna, as you know, is only 5'1", but he was a great basketball player when he was young. He was. George was a good basketball player. Yeah. And so when we had Huffley's in Toledo, it was like a Kfeirian reunion. We had so many families there. And for some reason, everybody stemmed out to the different places out of Toledo. Why, I'm not sure. Maybe Abe Bassett knows more about that than I do. But I was a member of the St. Elias Orthodox Church, and 90% of them there were Kfeirian. So I grew up with Kfeirians. I grew up with them here. I enjoyed coming here. My children enjoyed coming here. I have grandchildren here now. A lot of good memories, and I happen to live in a hometown where the Kfeirian culture was all around us. And one more thing, it's funny that George told the story. My grandmother wouldn't come here. And my uncle Aaliyah was sort of assigned to stay in the old country and take care of her. And he had 4 boys over there. And my grandfather on my father's side's name was Habib, and who was the Mechtar in the Kfeir, right, Julian? Which is considered the mayor. And I was unfortunate enough never to meet him. But my grandmother came over a couple times and spent the summers with us. And that's about it. That's the history of the Jamra clan.
So if you are on the other side of Toledo, or you are considered part of the Jamra clan, could you please stand so we can salute you? Jamras. Bassett. Very nice. Now, I think I failed to say, are you with the Rahall clan? Are there any people here that can consider themselves part of this? I think there's a whole lot of you here. Great. You may have noticed a few people stood for more than one clan that was mentioned. Well, I saved Julian for this part of the program. And I'm coming back to him. I saved Julian for this part because Julian was born in Kfeir, his family's still there, and he has a brother that Aunt Gloria tried to hook me up with a long time ago. He was too pretty and too tall for me. And I don't think he was interested. Well, that too. But you have a lot to say about how your family has grown, and you find yourself now here today on our 85th anniversary with your son and his family and sons, and he is the president of an organization that you have given your heart and soul to. Would you share a little bit of that and your story?
Number one, I would like to start. The Saad's family came here very early